the Eurozone hasn't been functioning well lately. According to the European Union's statistics agency, Eurostat, economic growth in the currency bloc rose by only 0.1% in the final 3 months of last year, down from 0.3% in the previous period. Data released on the day the United Kingdom formally withdrew from the EU shows the 19-nation region experienced its weakest quarter in almost 7 years. Disappointing performance from France and Italy's economies have weighed on the numbers. France's economy, the second largest in the EU, shrank by 0.1%, while Italy's GDP slumped by 0.3% between October and December.
It isn't the case that France and Italy are dragging the Eurozone down. The Eurozone is dragging France and Italy down. The whole problem with not the whole, but the major part of the problem with the Eurozone is the imposition of a currency which no national country can produce. And on top of that, the requirement that government debt doesn't exceed 60% of GDP and the deficit's no larger than 3% of GDP.
French Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire has blamed the strikes and protests against the government for the country's downbeat performance. Workers' unions have staged the country's longest industrial action over the government's pension reform plan in recent weeks. The walkouts have disrupted some of the country's key infrastructure, including ports, railways, and fuel depots, and brought down manufacturing output by 1.6%. The French finance minister, however, expects Paris to recover from the downturn, saying that the fundamentals of the country's growth are still solid. All in all, the numbers were much weaker than what economists had forecast, which can signal a malady that the EU economy is facing. Italy was the second European state whose lackluster economic performance dragged the Eurozone's growth. The country saw the worst quarterly economic performance since early 2013. Italy's statistics body blamed the weak growth on lower domestic demand and shrinking industry and agriculture. Although experts had expected the Italian economy to stagnate, they had not anticipated it to shrink. Rome's year-to-year GDP compared to the fourth quarter of 2018 was also unchanged, indicating the country's weakening economy.
The Italians were doing extremely well before they joined the euro. Since joining the euro and since the crisis in 2007, the economy hasn't grown at all in nominal terms for over a decade. France is not quite that bad, but still pretty bad. So I think it's actually the other way around. The Eurozone has dragged down France and Italy, not vice versa.
The slower growth of the members is not the only issue threatening the Eurozone. Trade tensions between the United States on the one side and China and the EU on the other can negatively impact the outlook for the euro. London's withdrawal from the European Union could further damage growth in the Eurozone if the UK and Europe fail to reach a trade deal in the 11-month Brexit transition period. Also, lowered fertility in the EU can put a considerable amount of pressure on pension systems and scare away investors. These were only some of the greatest concerns threatening Europe's prosperity and stability.
There is no such thing as savings. Savings, because expenditure is identical to income at the national level or the global level, there is no such thing as aggregate financial savings. Now, when you force this, attempt to create savings, what actually happens is GDP itself falls instead. So it's the rules of the Eurozone that are causing the crisis in France and Italy.
The only thing the European leaders can do at this point is to spend time and effort thinking about how to overcome the challenges so they can avert another major international recession.